am MightyKeef. Boys, the Elden Ring Nightreign reviews are in. Now, if y'all know me on Twitter and on this channel, I have actually been looking forward to this game. I think co-op, I love co-op, right? Especially PvE stuff, right? I'm not like the biggest PvP guy outside of fighting games. But when it comes to like this PvE kind of raiding, like in MMO type stuff, I always love being able to do communications and fighting something and beating it. Kind of like Monster Hunter, right? I love Monster Hunter in that type of format of co-op. Well, the reviews are out and it has scored a 78 so far. And that's 70 critic reviews. I don't see this going up anymore. If it goes up or down, maybe a point or so, but 78 is pretty much where it locked in. Now, obviously, these are critic reviews. Take those with a grain of salt. What really matters is going to be what the players say. I don't like going off of Metacritic anyway. These are just a general consensus. I think Steam reviews are probably more important because you have to actually buy the game, right? So you have to actually have some type of investment, at least money-wise. And you get to see how many hours person's played. So you get a better educated understanding of if that person is genuine or not. But even then, you know what I mean? Like, you really want to play a game. The only way you'll know if you like the game is if you play the game, right? But we can get a understanding of where it's going. And 78 is actually pretty low. Not for a game. 78 is good for a game. I want that to be clear. 78 is good for a video game. But when you say Elden Ring in the title, and when you know it's from FromSoft, 78 is kind of low in comparison to like their other games. Now, this is a spinoff. This isn't made by the dude who made Elden Ring, right? I forgot his name, Mizzy. I don't want to butcher his name. This was given to someone else, in FromSoft that did his own thing, right? And I'm glad they did that because I like when people do their own little, I think it's cool to kind of venture off and not do the same stuff, right? So I'm still getting the game. I believe I'm working with Bandai Namco to get it, but I still bought a code for Steam, and I think Bandai's giving me a PlayStation 1. But I'm still putting money into it, right? So I'm gonna give you guys a review of it when I play it tonight. I might even live stream it, right? I'm gonna get some boys together, and we're gonna probably play on the PlayStation, and then I'm gonna see what it's like in comparison to playing on PC. You know, which one? Because it's not cross-play, which sucks. But we get to at least see, if it's harder to. Well, it's the first day, so maybe it won't be hard to find people. But unfortunately, if you play on PlayStation 5 and everyone plays on PC, you just chose the wrong system. And vice versa. If everyone's playing on console but not PC, then you're screwed. Which is why crossplay is so good. But anyways, it's got a 78. The last time FromSoft had like a little spin-off thing, not really spin-off, but something that's not Dark Souls, right? Was Armored Core, which most people say is a good game, right? 8.1, right? Generally favorable. 86 from critics. I just got this on sale actually. It's like $30 on PlayStation, and I was like, yo, this is pretty fun. You can really get into like the customization to the point where it's like, I don't know, God damn, I can make a whole Gundam Wing Zero in this mess. But anyways, I kind of wanted to see what they're saying about this game, and unfortunately, it's not getting as good as I thought. But let's just hear.
Elden Ring, Nightreign is a
let's just see what they are saying.
Of one of the best open world RPGs.
That's the character I'm going.
It into not just a roguelite where death is even more of a big deal.
What?
But a three-person co-op focused roguelite.
I'm going
in many ways, that's
the one-handed dude or the tank, the owl.
Under the right conditions, Nightreign's 45-ish minute runs are positively thrilling. They are packed with surprising encounters, challenging decisions.
Now, I think IGN gave it a 7. Let me see if I can go and find all the reviews for you. Okay, so yeah, it looks like VG247 gave it a 5 out of 5. GameSpot gave it a 9. GameSpot regularly gives things a 7 or an 8. I gave it a 9. Kind of want to see what that was all. Game Rank gave it a 9. IGN gave it a 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look like halfway on IGN's just to see what their disagreements are, and then I'm going to look halfway on the GameSpots to see if they either align, the negatives align, or if a negative to one reviewer is actually a positive to another. So let's see.
And some of the best boss battles FromSoft has ever come up with. And that's a very high bar. The big problem, however, is that those
Who are you guys
missions
going, anyway?
are far more difficult to create than they should be. You really need to have a consistent squad of similarly skilled players that are able to devote hours at a time in order to see what makes Nightreign special. And when you don't, the flaws of its design are magnified tenfold. There is excellence in this Elden Ring.
I was kind of hoping that if you,
but
like,
it's excellence that's
are just
a
good
little
enough,
bit
you can
tarnished.
carry your team, you know what I mean? Like, if this game gives room for a lot of skill expression, then even if your teammates are bad, like, you should in theory be able
Let's
to, like...
get the most important caveat out of the way. You can tackle Nightreign entirely solo, and are anything less than a hardcore Elden Ring player that actively seeks out ways to make that already difficult game even more challenging, Nightreign isn't for you. Yes, there is technically a single-player option, but it's so poorly balanced that I would be honestly shocked if it isn't patched and adjusted within the first month of release. And this is coming from someone who lives and breathes these types of games. To understand why, we first need to go over what Nightreign even is. On a very basic level, this is a roguelite that takes place on an island called Limvelp, which is kind of like a melting pot of Elden Ring.
So he's saying single player is ass.
The general flow of a run is split up into a 3-day cycle. On days 1 and 2, it's all about farming gear, defeating bosses, and leveling up so that you're as prepared as possible when you face off against one of the 8 extremely difficult Nightlord bosses on day 3. It's a great formula, and while you might think that the mostly static...
That's my guy right
is
there.
after a while,
I'm using him.
there's a good amount of procedural generation on every run that mixes up the location of just about every point of interest, requiring you to plan out a unique that mixes up the location
that's a
of
good
just about
thing.
There's a good amount of procedural generation on every run that mixes up the location of just about every point of interest, requiring you to plan out a unique route on each new attempt.
Okay.
On top of that, there are also random events like boss raids, summoning portals, and other wild occurrences that inject a heavy level of chaos every once in a while.
I will also include...
Is key because you are on a very
This is a $40 game,
with a battle
okay?
royale-esque circle.
So I'm not going to judge it as if it was a $60, a $70, or an $80 game that we will be playing, right? So $40 game. So they get to...
Enemy encampments that don't require you to fight a single boss will instead have you spread out to take down 3
So things
enemies.
aren't going to be
Against 5 or more
as
enemies
weighted,
that
in my
would deal with
opinion.
3 players become costly time wasters when you're on your own.
Well, I'm
Become
talking over...
costly. Basic encounters against 5 or more enemies that would be trivial with 3 players become costly time wasters when you're on your own.
Okay. How would they even improve
And
single
the
player
network
then?
Bosses all seem explicitly designed with happy
What I had thought was going to happen, because I do remember them saying...
allies in mind.
Oh, keep
and
going.
I'm not sure how I would even approach several of them by myself. Nightreign at least scales up your damage
What they-
when you're alone, but it doesn't change any of these fundamental design decisions.
It
in
scales
any
up the
way that would make solo
damage.
play more reasonable.
So I don't understand why it's hard then, solo. Because that's what they do in Monster Hunter, right? If you play...
Fight each other when someone goes down, but you've only got 1 life to live against bosses when you're out on your own.
They should change that.
That's generally the case in roguelites, but usually there's some sort of safety net that you can fall back on.
Yeah.
For example, Hades has Death Defiances, and part of the progression of that game allows you to work towards unlocking more of them with every run. Returnal has artifacts that you can find that give you extra lives, with being more thorough in your exploration. Spelunky has shortcuts that allow you to skip the early stages to get practice on the enemies, traps, and bosses that you
The hell
only
is
have limited
Spelunky?
experience with.
Hello?
The list goes on, but Nightreign has virtually nothing to make up for the fact that solo players lose access to that crucial...
What's crazy is I used to hate roguelites, and now I fuck with them so heavy. Like, I almost only play roguelites now.
Meaning you have to choose it over a legendary
Maybe
weapon
my
that does appear as a reward.
focus is not good enough anymore to,
You may
like,
find them in a shop,
play
but
a
they cost
story-driven
a substantial amount
40,
of
50
euros.
hour game. I don't know. Maybe I need to, like, jump in and
Either
just...
way, it's just not a solution
and then
that
get
makes
out.
up for the crippling detriment
But I love
of not
roguelites
being
now.
able to revive you if you go down. None of this is to say that solo play is outright impossible.
Just throw on,
and
like,
I have
some
had a few successful runs on my own.
music and-
Just that the balancing of solo play feels like a job half finished. And as a result, the frustration of playing alone wasn't worth the triumph for me to have any desire to play it more without a squad.
Okay, so single player actually looks like a problem. I do know that they are doing some changes, though, guaranteed.
Nightraign's saving grace
Because they said they're
is
going to
that
add,
you
like, a
have
duo
squad of 3
mode.
people who all
And
know
so
what they're
maybe
doing,
that will also
communicate well,
fix the
and are
solo
generally pretty skilled
play.
in Elden Ring. It really is a lot of fun. The central idea of taking an entire game's worth of progression and condensing it into a 40-minute run is a strong one. Going from cutting down rats with a basic weapon
40 minutes
to
is a
culling
good
Elden
time
Ring's
time.
most fearsome bosses with a badass armament that you
What?
may or may not
That's
have gotten
fire.
to use in the main game is one of the coolest and most satisfying.
Bro,
parts.
everything I'm looking at
80
looks fun
hours
as hell.
of
I'm gonna be
gameplay
honest with you.
condensed into less than an hour and shot straight.
Maybe there's a huge disconnect from what I'm seeing and what I'll play, but from everything I'm seeing, it looks
Roughing
fun.
into a run the first couple of times
If you're not
is
in
certainly
solo.
overwhelming, mostly because of the amount of information on the minimap.
Sorry, my throat has
But
been
at least
killing me,
FromSoft
bro.
keeps the inventory and stat management very simple. Level ups are automatic, letting you press a button at a site of grace to automatically level your class's preferred stats. And as far as weapon stats go, all you have to worry about here is the damage number, the elemental affinity, the passive bonus you get simply for having the weapon in your inventory, and the weapon skill that comes along with it. This meant when I had a choice between 3 rewards, I was able to very quickly make a judgment on what I needed at
Yeah,
that
that's
moment
important,
and continue on my way. Eventually, I started to
I was gonna say, it should give you depth,
at which camps,
but it can't be
which ones were
too
quick and could be cleared
complex to the point where it's like, oh, let me mid-max, mid-game, you know, while this huge barrier's closing in on me.
Unless my team was really confident in our builds. Exploring these areas can be more frustrating than it needs to be, thanks to a new wall climbing ability that just feels straight up bad. Especially when it takes 3 attempts to jump over what looks like should be an easily scalable
Nah, you
wall
look like you just
as
bad,
you're trying
buddy.
to escape from the encroaching
It looked like it made sense. It looked like he just messed up.
helped my efficiency and led to a very satisfying feeling of skill
Nah.
progression that wasn't tied to the actual progression system that offers persistent improvements between attempts. That
hold on.
system is tied to relics.
This
that
is
you
what
won
this is
after
the
completing
important
a run.
part,
Whether
because this
it's
is like
a
what
progression
you're
that wasn't tied to the actual progression system that offers persistent.
this is like what you're
But
fighting
knowing
for.
the ins and outs of the map helped my efficiency and led to a very satisfying feeling of skill progression that wasn't tied to the actual progression system that offers persistent improvements between attempts. That system is tied to relics that can be won after completing a run. Whether you win or lose, you still get relic.
Increase rune acquisition for self and allies. Okay.
But the better you perform, the better the quality and quantity of relic or lose. That tied to the progression system that offers persistent improvements
My question
between
is,
attempts. That system.
do you get to take like 1 rune at a time, or do you get 3, or are they all something that? Okay, poison rot in vicinity increases attack power. Okay, that's cool. That'd be a cool build.
After completing a run, whether you win or lose, you still get relics. But the better you perform, the better the quality and quantity of relics you earn. These can be equipped before a run and impart stat bonuses, starting skills or elemental affinities for your initial weapon, buffs for performing certain actions, and in some cases, they can even improve the skills of a specific class. When you're just starting out, these bonuses are hardly noticeable and too random to really make any sort of compelling build from.
Yeah.
But eventually, with enough runs under your belt, you'll get some powerful relics that can really start to have an effect on your power level in a run. That said, there should
That's
really
what I wanna
be more
hear.
of an element of choice with regards to the meta progression, or at least a way to control some of the randomness. There are a small selection of relics that you can buy at the jar shop inside your base before runs, and there are set relic rewards for being Night Lord bosses and completing class-specific objectives called Remembrances, but other than that, you're completely at the mercy of the RNG gods when it comes to what relics you get. It can be really annoying when you're looking to strengthen your preferred class, and you
Yeah.
keep getting relics that just don't do anything for you.
Yeah, that could kind of suck. If I'm like trying to play that melee class, where I'm getting all sorcerer stuff.
One of the biggest departures compared to what we're used to from Elden Ring is that the classes are now actual classes, with unique skills and gameplay styles, as opposed to classes that just determine your starting stats and weapons.
I'm actually
And the
100%
options
okay with
are
that, by the
varied
way.
and well-defined.
I think it's cool to have a game with set classes, while we already have a game
Wilder,
with
for instance,
not
is
set
the
classes.
general jack of all trades, but also has access to a nifty grappling hook
Yeah,
can be used
that
to
looks
hold
so
enemies
cool.
towards you, zip yourself
Oh, I'm gonna
towards
be on this
enemies,
game, bruh.
or simply zoom you around the field at high speeds if you aim it on the ground. In addition to the basic fighter, mage, and ranger archetypes, you also have a few completely unique choices that don't fit into any pre-existing mold. One of the most interesting classes is whose main skill has you pulling out a unique sword with a Sekiro-like parrying mechanic tied to it. Basically, by blocking attacks with proper timing, you completely negate damage, don't lose any stamina, and reduce the enemy's own stamina, potentially opening them up for a critical hit. It's a very risky class,
Yeah.
especially in a game where missing a parry can mean almost certain death.
Yeah.
It feels like the offensive power
What sucks
of
is in Elden Ring you
will
can't really
to
see their
justify the risk of
stagger.
the parries.
Like in Sekiro, you can see their stagger, so you can kind of
Both
see.
a nod to Sekiro
You can make that
and
decision of when to
completely
attack.
different
But in this
approach.
one,
As mentioned, each
you
of
can't
the
really see when they're about to get staggered.
which is essentially
So you just gotta
a
wait till they're
games that
actually
chronicle the
completely
story of
down.
How they wound up in Limveld and their purpose for being there. It's a far cry from the rich lore that we're used to in FromSoft games, but at least each of the remembrances has a handful of playable chapters that have you completing specific objectives in order to earn powerful relics, as well as a healthy amount of runes to help you level up during the actual run itself.
Okay, I actually want to check out the Gamespot review for a little bit because we already went halfway through and we got a good understanding of what IGN was trying to say. And I want to see if that mimics what GameSpot's saying because again, IGN gave it a 7, while GameSpot gave it a 9. I want to see the discrepancy between both of them. What's crazy is this just came out 8 minutes ago. What the hell? But they had the review yesterday.
Is also a game of striking subversions. A From Software game that asks you to play it unconventionally, disregarding meticulous exploration, isolation, and measured combat for a cooperative multiplayer game built on speed and aggression. In many ways, it's the antithesis of what people typically come to From Software games for. And yet, somehow, some way,
I don't know about
this
that.
experimental non-sequel is an absolute triumph.
I feel like people come to FromSoft games for like
It all
exploration.
starts with Nightrein's enticing structure. First,
Oh,
you
Elden
choose the
Ring,
boss
excuse me,
you want to
specifically.
fight. Then embark on a 35 to 45-minute expedition.
And of
that
course,
takes place across 3
building your character, the boss fights and
During
building
the
your
day,
character.
You and 2 teammates doing multiplayer is the ideal scenario. Will
Oh,
quickly
okay. Well, he
explore
said-
the
so
landscape
single player is
of
just
Limveld,
ass.
an
Single player is
alternative
just
of
ass.
Limgrave, where the typography stays
I like
the
actually
same,
just
but
ass,
locations
which sucks.
and
They gotta
enemies
change that.
randomly change from one expedition.
Because you expect me to have friends?
Everyone starts at level 1, so you'll want to kill enemies to
That's crazy.
and level up, as well as find new weapons, tools, and character upgrades to aid you in the battles ahead. At some point during both the first and second days, a deadly battle royale style circle begins closing in, funneling you into a mandatory showdown against a random boss. These bosses are selected from a pool of familiar foes, so there's a lot of variety, but you'll also run into the same few opponents if you're repeating the same expedition over and over again. If you manage to survive for 2 days and defeat the boss at the end of day 2, you'll move on to the 3rd day and square off against the Night Lord you chose at the beginning of the expedition in what is typically a grandiose, challenging, and ultimately thrilling battle. Whether you win or lose, you'll earn relics that you can equip to provide.
So as far as I know, there's only 8 final bosses.
Adding elemental damage that targets a boss's weakness. to
So this is
improve
definitely not a
its
live service
attributes
game. This is like-
strength and vigor. This
Yeah.
is the gist of Nightrein's gameplay loop, but there's also a cavernous amount of depth that gradually reveals itself as you attempt to defeat each of the 8 intimidating Night Lords. There may be aspects of its design clearly inspired by roguelites, battle royales, and extraction games, but it never feels like From Software is simply chasing the latest multiplayer trends. Instead, Nightreign reinterprets.
I have to say that I am sick of people saying this is like a Fortnite game, only because like that's going to paint a picture that is not reflective of what this game actually is. If you see someone flying in with a glider or a barrier shrinking in, yes, that is a prominent thing that happens in Fortnite. That is not what Fortnite is. Fortnite is a shooting battle royale, PvP, shooting battle royale. This is like he said, an extraction. Well, not has an extraction game, RPG elements. This is a co-op PVE slashing game.
Inspirations to fit the studio.
Just because it has one aspect of Fortnite doesn't make this a
creating
Fortnite
smash and
game.
grab style that truncates the Elden Ring experience into 45 minutes of intense combat and traversal. You'll still be challenged by an array of varied enemies, explore castles and underground mines, and witness the sort of world building and character development the studio is known for.
They gave this.
But it all occurs
Isn't that
in
a?
condensed,
They gave him a shield. Isn't he an arrow
palpable
user or
sense
bow
of
user?
forward momentum.
And I heard the bows have infinite arrows,
One
which is
more
good.
game mindset. Much of this focus on speed is owed to the Knight's Tide. The aforementioned Battle Royale style circle is composed of deadly blue flames that contract over time, quickly killing anyone caught in its midst.
Well, you can use crossbows. Okay.
During the day, dying doesn't spell expedition, but if your allies fail to revive you from a down state in time, you'll respawn and drop a level.
Oh, I heard about that.
You are
That
carrying left at
sucks.
the site of your death.
Oh.
Losing a level is detrimental because leveling up is a blanket attribute and health boost. Rather than improving stat by stat like in Elden Ring, progression has been streamlined so that a single button press at a site of grace will automatically boost the attributes most important to your character archetype.
Okay.
By the end of a
I'm
run,
okay
you'll
with
want
that.
to be at least level 11 or 12, so avoiding death is crucial. Each day is essentially a farming.
I'm okay with that because that's what this game is supposed to like. I think the variety of how your character is built is going to be in the weapons and those rune things that you get.
Defeating regular enemies and mini bosses known as great enemies and field bosses to level up and accumulate loot before the Knight's Tide closes in. The optimal way to do this isn't immediately clear, so Nightreign still manages to capture the cycle of learning through failure that's part of FromSoftware's identity.
Yep.
My first few expeditions were definitely less than stellar, as it was apparent everyone involved was still learning the ropes. After a while, however, things started to click into place. We'd head to a great church or enemy encampment not long after dropping onto the map, since they typically contain low-level enemies. Then, we'd make sure to stop by the nearest church to increase flask uses.
Sorry I'm coughing so much, boys. My throat has been killing me. I must have got a bug or something sometime last week. Which is weird because, like, my nasal is all good. It doesn't feel inflamed or infected. It's just my throat.
Or the field bosses that wander the overworld.
I'm not gonna lie.
The Night Lords are the highlight, though. My excitement
Playing bow looks so fun right now. I've never seen it as fun as right now.
A unique challenge. Gladius is the first one you encounter, a giant three-headed wolf with a sword chained across its back. When it's not spitting flames and swinging its sword in deadly circles, its three heads are splitting off to form three separate wolves, hunting you down in a
This looks like where you fight
The other
Radahn.
Night Lords are similarly
Kinda.
inventive, but I'll leave you to find out how. Where Nightreign differs from an Elden Ring boss fight is in how its playable characters can potentially synergize with each other. Rather than creating your own character, you're asked to pick from a roster of 8 varied night fares before embarking on an expedition. Each one fills a specific archetype with stark strengths and art that's unique to each one. Character skills, meanwhile, are active and operate on a short cooldown, ranging from executors.
The way the UI is held up with like the skills make it seem like a mobile game.
Claw, which latches onto enemies
You know those big
or you towards them.
big buttons with nothing on it,
Used after filling a gauge
just right in your face
damage
down there. I
so
was so
you're best
confused about
reserved
that.
for crucial moments. You can see where Guardian's wings of salvation might come in handy, as it sees him launch into the sky before plummeting back down to Earth to both deal damage
Now that's
and
cool.
create a protective area that revives downed allies.
He might actually be my main because I think defense. If you have a good tank, that could
Where he pulls out a massive
that could
bow
help
for a
bad
fearsome ranged
bad
strike
players.
and break through any defense.
Like if you're a really good tank
Are universally
and you
enjoyable
can have the boss focus on you and you can make the decisions,
when combined.
then the bad players all they have to do is worry about offense. They don't have to worry about interactions as much. That's what I assume is going to happen with this.
From the ground. Not only does this
They don't have to worry about decision makings or interactions. They just have to do DPS. So if you have a really good tank, I feel like that could carry bad teams.
Atop, allowing ranged characters like Iron Eye and Recluse the chance to attack from above while remaining relatively safe. Any Nightfarer can also use any weapon with no stat requirements, apart from the occasional level gating or weight restrictions to worry about. Certain weapon
That's
types
cool.
are more suited for a specific character, so while you could use a great hammer with Recluse, a staff is going to be much more effective, especially when weapon scaling is still a consideration. In a wise design choice, however, weapons in Nightreign are also useful for more than just attacks. Almost every weapon contains passive buffs that remain active as long as you have it in one of your 6 equipment slots. You might have no intention of using a glintstone staff, but you can still reap the benefits of the glint blade phalanx that's active at all times, surrounding you with a bunch of magic swords that target the nearest enemy.
That's pretty cool.
There's an incentive to try out.
So I could get a staff as a melee user if it has a good ass passive.
But there are also narrative reasons for using the entire roster. Each Nightfarer has their own bespoke storyline told through what are called remembrances. There's a journal in the east wing of the round table.
I might actually play the wider first because he has more of a
They were all drawn to Limveld by either fate or
jack of all trades. You know what I'm saying?
and their backstories are frequently fascinating.
It's like learning Ryu first.
Into the lore already established in Elden Ring. Defeating all 8 and 9 lords and completing each Nightfarer's personal story is a lengthy endeavor, but it remains to be seen how much life will be left in the game after that. Even after 30 hours, I haven't experienced any hints of tedium creeping in. A
Really?
testament to the strength of its gameplay loop.
This guy's saying after 30 hours,
Keep the
it's still
map
fresh.
by occasionally altering Limveld's terrain with mountains, a burning crater, rotting woods, and even a labyrinthian city. Aside from injecting the map with a striking aesthetic flavor, each area also introduces new enemies and more high-risk, high-reward situations to consider. Couple this with world events such as nighttime bosses appearing during the day and invasions
That
of
did so
hostile
much damage.
Nightfarer NPCs, and no 2 runs are ever the same.
Oh, that's all I want to hear.
Nightraign's announcement was a genuine surprise. The details explaining the kind of game it was were even more surprising. This peculiar mix of FromSoft RPG sliced with
So far, it seems like the common negatives are that solo play is just ass.
no game studio would actually devote money to. But here is From Software, tapping into its creativity to put its own weird, bold spin on a thrilling cooperative multiplayer experience. Even if the end result were middling, this is the kind of risk worth celebrating, but doubly so now that it turned out to be such a fantastic, anomalous thing. The part of From Software's collective brain that created oddities like Metal Wolf Chaos and Otogi Myth of Demons is still very much alive and well.
Okay. All right. So yeah, nothing but praise from them. They did say that the single player is terrible, and that seems to be kind of it right now. Hey guys, you let me know what you guys think. I'm gonna be playing it, like I said, and I would like to see you guys here. I'm gonna be doing some live streaming probably tonight. If not tonight, then tomorrow because it comes out at like midnight tonight, I think, on console. Oh no, PC is like 6 p.m. right, or 9 p.m. One of the two. I don't know, but I'll see you guys here later tonight. All right, tell me if you guys are getting it or not. Peace.